Hello, today we are going to make a onion soup. So right now I am caramelizing the onions because if you want a good taste in onion soup, caramelize the onions first. That brings out the flavor of the onion. I put in 3 nice sized onions and I'm going to mix some shallots that I also got chopped up in with the onions. Caramelize them also. And I also got a leek, a big leek cut up, which also goes in the soup. So we'll set that aside. That actually goes into the soup when you start the soup process. So we'll go ahead and caramelize up our onions and our shallots. And in this pan over here, I got some beef broth and some chicken broth. I mix them together. You can warm them separately if you want, but I mix them together. And I also put a can of tomato paste in there, which actually helps bring out the flavors. Anyway, I'm slowly heating that up. That way when you're mixing it into the soup, you're mixing already warmed up broth in there. Alright, we'll be back when this is all caramelized. And then we'll start our roux. The onions are coming up on being done. Getting a nice color to them, and boy do they smell good. In this pan right here, we're going to go ahead and start our roux. So let's go ahead and turn the burner on, and we'll get some butter in there and get it a-melting. If you don't know what that is, it's just for thickening up the soup. Just a little bit of butter and flour. Alright, we got the butter heated up. Now we're going to go ahead and put some flour in there. Go ahead and mix that in really good with the butter. And if you need to add a little butter, go ahead. A little extra butter. We want it to be a light roux, where it's not really thick, where it's a little bit runny, where you can see it moving around like that. That's how we're going to want it right there. Alright. Let that sit on the heat for a minute. Make sure all the flour is mixed in with the butter. There we go. It's kind of a light mixture right there, a little bit of liquidy. We'll go ahead and add our onions now. They are nice and caramelized, so we'll put those right on top. And we'll go ahead and put our leeks on top of there. They're all in the onion family, the leeks and the shallots and the onions, of course. Mix those in there. And now we need to go ahead and put a little of that broth in there. Try not to spill too much of it. Go. Go ahead and mix it up. It's onion soup, so you want lots of onion in there. At this point, if you like to or want to, you can put some like sherry wine in there. But we're just going to go with the broth. So now, make sure you get out your trusty spoon and taste that. Okay. Because if you buy the broth, a lot of times they have a lot of salt in them, so you got to be real careful on that. You don't want to add more salt if you got a lot from your broth. But I bought low sodium, so I am going to go ahead and mix some salt and some pepper in there. Now let's go ahead and put some pepper in there. About a tablespoon. Alright. Get that heat up to a medium heat so you can slowly bring it to a boil. You don't need to bring it to an aggressive boil, just where it comes to a light boil, and then go ahead and turn it down and let it sit for an hour and a half. Alright, we got a little boil going on. We're going to go ahead and turn the heat down. Make sure you stir it when it's getting to the boiling point so it does not stick to the bottom. You don't want burnt soup, but you can see that's getting nice and thick, and it has lots and lots of onion. You don't want it too thick, but you don't want it watery either, your soup. So if it ends up being too thick from the roux, then you can always add more beef or chicken stock. And towards the end, go ahead and add more salt and pepper. Taste it first and see if you need more. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and let this cook for an hour and a half or an hour. Put a lid on it. There we go. Alright, it's been a little over an hour. The soup is at the right consistency, so I made the right amount of roux. If it's too watery, you can always add a little more flour. If you got like a wire basket, like a strainer, you can set that in there and then put the flour in that and use a wire whisk to break it up. You don't want to just dump it in your soup, because then you can end up with flour clumps. If you're doing it in a wire basket with it submerged into the liquid and you're blending it in, then the only thing getting out of it is the flour that's blended in with the juice. So you're not ending up with clumps. So you can always just lift that out if you got clumps and take the clumps out. But anyway, you can go ahead and eat it just like this, or you can do it like French onion soup. Put it in a oven baking bowl, and ours were just delivered like 2 minutes ago. But put it in a oven baking bowl and put the little baguette rounds on it. We bought a loaf of the bread, but put your little baguette rounds on the top of the soup, and that way you can lay your Swiss cheese or the type of cheese you prefer across it, and then you can stick it in the oven and cook it until the cheese is nice and melted. Or if you want, just pull it out and sprinkle some chives on top of the cheese, some fresh chopped chives, and we got some of those from our garden. We got our bowls from Amazon just a few minutes ago, so I washed them up, and I'm going to go ahead and get them ready to put in the oven with the onion soup. go ahead and dish some onion soup in there. Alright, just like that. Go ahead and put your baguettes on the top. That is what your cheese will have or grab onto. And then we'll go ahead and put our sliced Swiss cheese on it. You can use a Bounty cheese or whatever kind you like, but I like Swiss cheese. And that's pretty much all. You just bake it until the cheese is all melted, and there you go. And that is French onion soup. Alright, I just pulled it out of the oven and it is ready to eat. Yum yum.